Hello, welcome to the HRTF podcast. This is the Human Rights Task Force podcast, where we talk about everything human rights oriented in the town of Westwood. My name is Melinda Garfield. I am the co-chair of the Human Rights Task Force, and with me is...
Hi, I'm Danielle Sutton. I am also a co-chair of the Human Rights Task Force.
And we are so excited to have Select Board member Michael Walsh joining us today. Thanks, Mike, for joining us on our podcast.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Great. So how long have you been in your role as Select Board in Westwood?
I'm presently in my 9th year.
Whoa. Wow, 9 years. That's a lot. How long have you lived in Westwood?
I have lived here in August. It'll be 16 years.
Oh, wow. That's great. And so, living here for 16 years, what made you decide to serve on the select board for these past 9 years?
Well, quite honestly, I thought at the time that there were more city people who had moved out to Westwood, and it was no longer just a small town feel, and it needed to bring someone who had a different perspective than the small town view. And I thought it was a good time to get involved.
I think that's really interesting. So you felt like you brought a different perspective, maybe as someone who didn't grow up in Westwood.
Yes, and I think I learned pretty much the first time around when I was campaigning that, I was the person who would stand on street corners and hold signs. That was never done before I got here. They usually just did a newspaper endorsement from all the, influential people in town. And that's how most people decided. They weren't standing on street corners or knocking on doors, etc. So I definitely did bring a different perspective at the time.
That's great. And not everybody could do things like this in their community, but not everybody does. What drives you to perform community service in this way by serving on the select board?
Well, my dad was a Boston police officer. And so I think that's probably where some of it comes from. And the other part comes from the fact that I'm a practicing attorney that represents the average person. I do workers' comp and social security work. So, I'm dealing with individuals and not corporations, although I do fight the corporations on behalf of the individuals. And so I just think it's really a continuation of what I do during the day.
That's
Thank you, Mike.
Can you give us your thoughts on how local government plays a part in human rights or DEI work?
Well, I think it like everything, it starts at the top. So I think that, I think it's important that we work as a community to help in any way that we can, supporting any action that might be brought about by our citizens throughout the town, really making Westwood feel inclusive. And I think I've never felt from day one that Westwood was anything but inclusive. In fact, when I first campaigned, I was involved with the Asian community. Believe it or not, I went to their Sunday schools and things like that to talk to them and find out what their important interests were in town. And so I just think it's a continuing way to go and to try to make sure that everyone else in town fosters that same idea.
Mm-hmm. And you talked a little bit about this. What are some of the things that you think the town is doing right in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I think that we offer a lot of different programs throughout town. We support different holidays in town. We support the Diwali festival. We do. We have a school on Sunday morning for the Asian students to learn their language, and there are other different things that go on. We have the international walks that happen of all faiths right around the week between Thanksgiving, right before Thanksgiving. And we've just always done a lot of things to make sure that everyone's included and everyone feels like Westwood is their town.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah. I would be remiss if we didn't bring this part up. Obviously our work on the Human Rights Task Force, we have identified what we're doing, what's good in our community, what things are happening that are on track with DEI work. And then obviously some of the unmet needs of the community. So in what ways do you see that we can make improvements in our community?
Well, I've never really felt like Westwood needed a lot to do, but, there's always work to do. So I think that we can continue to involve all different types of faiths, all different types of individuals. We work with the school department, although we don't have a lot of say over what they're able to do, but we do work with them. to try to make sure that it starts at the lowest level and continues up for everyone to be included in all that we do in town, including the disabled. That's a category that a lot of people forget about. We are presently doing a disability analysis throughout town to see where we can help in that area as well. So there are lots of different things, and sometimes we don't think of them. People come to us with great ideas, and it's our job as a select board to continue to foster those and to make sure that every good idea gets brought to the table and discussed, and then move forward with it when we get the opportunity.
All right, thank you. And, along with thinking about any improvements, we think about the conversations that are necessary. And as a select board member, you're no stranger to challenging conversations. How would you suggest that we, as a community, bring people together to discuss hard topics?
So a couple of years ago, my daughter graduated from Bentley University. And at the graduation speech, I'll never forget, there were just a few words that the outgoing president said to the students. And it was, argue like you're right, but listen like you're wrong. And I think that's what people, at least for the last couple of years, have stopped listening. They don't necessarily want to hear that there's a different opinion. And if they do, they're just discounting it. And that's just unfair. As I like to tell people, my idea is my idea, and your idea is your idea. And just because I'm a select board member, it doesn't mean mine is any better. And we need to listen to everyone, because there are good points that we oversee and don't really take the opportunity to really, see what that person's thinking about, to feel what they're feeling. And our job is to try to make sure that that door stays open for everyone and that everyone feels included, and to do the best that we can with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, good one. When you picture the community of Westwood in 5 years, what do you hope to see the same or different in terms of human rights, diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think at this point in time, we still have I'll call it a minority group that is still pushing a different agenda. And I'm hoping that over time that we can kind of bring that difference together and to make the town really, I don't want to use the words one Westwood, but really to make it a united community, and that everyone, even if you can't see exactly as that person is seeing, that you could at least learn to respect it and understand it. Whether it's religious differences, gender differences, however it might be, just understand that just because you don't feel that way doesn't mean that there aren't others who feel that way. And you really just want to try to make sure that they feel included, and that we are fostering a community that is least open to ideas and to individuals.
Well, those were all of our questions. Thank you again for joining us. In our tradition, in our episodes, we've always left the audience with a quote. And today I found one that encompasses, your service to the community. So in the words of Audrey Hepburn, as you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself and the other for helping others.
Excellent. Well, at 60, I appreciate that.
Great. Well, Michael, thank you again for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you,
very
Mike.
much. Anytime you want me back, just be sure to reach out. Thank you.
Awesome.